guys? Welcome back to Life from Nerds. Hope you guys are doing well today. A lot of times quartz watches get a lot of bad media, bad rap. I don't know why this is. I have a couple of reasons why I think, but I don't know if these are definitive reasons. But quartz watches get a lot of bad press by a lot of watch collectors, and I am here to make a video to discuss whether or not quartz movements are worth the money that you spend on them. So that's what we're going to be discussing today. But before we get into that, like I say, every single video, be sure to hit that subscribe button if you like these types of videos, as well as smash that like button for quartz movements. So going back into the topic for today, like I said, quartz movements, quartz watches oftentimes get a bad rep. I think it's because of the stigma with watches that you have to spend a lot of money in order to purchase a watch that is worth discussing, worth wearing on your wrist, worth showing other collectors. And quartz watches are oftentimes a lot easier to manufacture, therefore they're a lot cheaper to purchase, and you don't spend as much money as you do on a mechanical watch. So people think they're garbage and they're not worth your time. But I think quartz watches are absolutely worth experiencing, worth trying, worth wearing, worth showing people, because you can get some really great watches with really interesting stories, and they can add to your collection very, very nicely. I'm going to go over some of the reasons why I think quartz movements or quartz watches are definitely worth it. But before we kind of go into my reasoning, I just want to make sure that everyone is aware of what a quartz watch is. Quartz watches are essentially a watch movement that utilizes a battery to power the actual watch. I have made a video where I discussed how the quartz movement actually works. So be sure to check that out on our channel if you want to learn a little bit more about quartz watches. But the essence of what a quartz movement is that the watch uses a battery to power it, and that power ends up having the watch tell time, and you can utilize that battery for telling time. A lot of people like these types of watches because all you have to do is replace the battery. Batteries are not that expensive, and they're very easy to replace. You can take it to your watchmaker and they can do that for you. So going into the reasons why I think quartz movements are definitely worth it is, the first one is accuracy. Quartz movements are way more accurate than mechanical movements. This is something that's very well known within the watch industry, and that's why quartz watches actually came about. Inventors were trying to find a way that they could create a watch that was a lot more accurate than mechanical watches, because as all things, mechanical movements obviously are not perfect. The oscillation of the balance wheel can differ depending on different angles that it's at, and that is essentially the regulating organism for the movement. So because of that, the accuracy of mechanical watches decreases. But with quartz watches, there's a consistent amount of power that's being driven through the movement, which means it can be as accurate as possible. I think this is an important factor for those who actually need accuracy for their watches. Some people have jobs where they need movements to be as accurate as possible because they utilize their watch as a tool. And in those types of professions, accuracy is key. So having a quartz movement in their watch will be extremely important. So that's one example of someone who will need, who relies on the fact that quartz movements are accurate and that they should be, and that they're important. The next thing is there's some extremely important brands that create quartz movements and are part of and utilize quartz movements in their watches, and it really set them up as a watch company, but also add to the variety of the collection that they have. So a very easy one is Seiko. I'm going to show you this Seiko that I have here. This is my first Seiko that I ever received. This is a Seiko chronograph from the 2002 soccer FIFA World Cup. So this is a quartz movement watch that I have, but I think the reason why I'm showing you this is because Seiko is an extremely integral part of quartz watches, the quartz watch movement, and they wouldn't kind of be who they are without the quartz watches that they created. Furthermore, you can even extrapolate that to Grand Seiko, which is kind of like the high-end watch company from Seiko, who essentially utilized their name and the money that they made from creating quartz watches to come up with some extremely beautiful mechanical pieces. They've even done some very important things with spring drive movements, so it's extremely important for that. And I'll say that, you know, it's extremely important for these brands because it really did create some icons. Seiko is considered an icon nowadays. So that's one watch company that Quartz Movements has affected. I will also say that, you know, I think it's also something that, you know, other Swiss brands have utilized during the Quartz Crisis. A lot of Swiss brands, I'll get into the Quartz Crisis a little bit more in just a sec, but a lot of Swiss brands started using Quartz Movements, and I know that there's a specific Patek Philippe that is like I believe it's a response to the Quartz Crisis, and you know, there's also a movement that was created by Swiss companies during that time that they said, okay, we all believe in this quartz movement, let's utilize that. So it's definitely a part of, you know, it's some extremely important brands utilize quartz movements, and you shouldn't discount quartz movements just because they're inexpensive. The third part, and I kind of was alluding to this, is quartz movements are a part of watchmaking history. The Quartz Crisis was a time where back in the 70s, 60s and 70s, into the 80s, essentially what happened was the quartz movement was founded and the quartz movement was created, and people realized that this was more accurate than mechanical movements, and they ended up purchasing mechanical movements. They ended up kind of the purchase of mechanical movements ended up kind of slowing and almost died, and people started buying quartz movements because they were just so much more accurate, and that's what people were looking for in a watch. So people went into buying quartz movements, and it really hit the Swiss watch industry. Those who were creating mechanical watches really struggled to sell their pieces. And no matter if you like the fact that this happened or if you didn't like the fact that this happened, quartz movements have a huge influence on the types of watches that came out of that period, but also the watches that came from that period. You could say that this memo sale that I talk about every single video, essentially, this was from the 70s, and the quartz movement was extremely popular during that time. This type of design was probably was influenced by the fact that the Quartz Crisis was going on, and quartz watches were being released, and the quartz movements were being produced. I think it shows, one, the resilience of the companies that were in that period and then ended up exiting and finding ways that they could regain their customers, but it also shaped the way that their watches ended up being developed, because they had to really compete with the accuracy of the quartz watches. You could even say, you know, the fact that these were so accurate, it pushed Swiss manufacturers to try and create watches that were as accurate as possible. And then the last reason that I have is there are just some very, very cool watches out there that run on Swiss movements. A great example is, like I said, this chronograph that I have from Seiko, which is from the 2002 World Cup. This is a great example, but there are other icons out there. That Seiko SKX is considered one of the most liked Seikos, I would say. Every type of watch collector owns one, and without you know, Seiko's quartz watches that were created, the Seiko SKS would really not have been. It would have not come about. The SKX obviously has a mechanical movement in it, but without Seiko creating quartz movements and really becoming a very large company within the watch manufacturing space and selling those pieces, they wouldn't have the money to develop the SKX. Another one is like the G-Shock. Everyone likes the G-Shock. It's not a watch. I don't really know what it is, to be honest, but it is a quartz watch. Some of them have solar abilities, so those are icons that come out there. But for me personally, this Quartz Seiko is really a good example of some of the beautiful watches that can come out of quartz movement watches. So those are kind of the reasons why I think quartz movements are extremely important. Let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know what you think about quartz movements, why they're important to you. I'd love to hear it. Just to recap, I think they're extremely important for accuracy. There's some extremely important brands that have been created and who use quartz movements. It's part of watchmaking history, which is a huge part of why quartz movements are extremely important. And there's some very cool watches that have quartz movements that you shouldn't discount. Because really, when you're collecting watches, you want to buy things that you enjoy, right? So if there are really cool watches that you've seen and they have quartz movements in them, you shouldn't say, I'm not going to get it because it has a quartz movement and people are going to, think of me differently. Who cares? You should experience the watches and enjoy the watches that you like. That is what watch collecting is about. And I have this limited edition Seiko. I will always have this limited edition Seiko because I think it's really, really cool. And that's that. So I hope that kind of helped explain why I like quartz movements. Let me know in the comments again what you guys think. And don't forget to smash the like button for quartz movements. And with that said, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video, and until next time.